Welcome back, everybody, to Top Tier Studios. This is episode 14, and in this episode, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. So, as you can see in the title of this video, we're going to be finishing off the project that we started last episode. But not only that, we're going to be finishing this Intergalactica area of the park, the sci-fi section of the studio park that we have here. So, this is going to include the finishing of this ride. We're going to build a flat ride and theme that all up, get the queue done, the building done, all of that is going to be done in this episode, and we'll be moving on to the next episode in the next, the next area in the next episode. So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the episode. And speaking of the end of the episode, at the end of this episode, there will be a POV of this ride, this arm ride that we started last episode. So just a quick rundown of what we did last episode. We basically started the theming of this ride. So that included the first couple of areas. So this like 0G space outer space areas, and then we have the moon section. So now we're going to be working on the Mars section and back in again a space section as well. So that's what we got going on in this episode and what we did last episode. So yes, there will be a POV at the end, and I was debating last episode whether to do like a commentary for it. I've decided I'm not going to for this particular run through of it, just because I'll be speaking this whole episode, and that's kind of why the episode is actually going to be a lot longer than it actually is. So the episode, the time lapse in general is about 13 minutes, but with the ride I'm anticipating it being more around like 14 to 15 minutes, about there. So no commentary, just because I'm going to be talking this whole video, and I guess it would be a little bit too much. I don't know. But if we go on and if I make a separate video of it showcasing this ride, then there would be commentary in it. So that's what we're doing in this episode. And actually, I forgot to mention, because I did this build a long time ago. So the flat ride that you see like on the other side of this wall, it's kind of like that shadow that can be seen. That ride was placed before I started working on this ride, but I believe I have another flat ride that I'll be making in this episode. So it's kind of like a dual flat ride. It's going to be on the other side of the building, and they're going to kind of go opposite sides. It's kind of hard to explain, and this area will not be completely finished, just like the Ghostbusters isn't completely finished yet, because I have to wait until I do the area in between the Ghostbusters and Sci-fi area. That will pretty much tie everything back together. So that one is going to be a little bit separate themed, but for the next episode, we're going to move back to the front of the park and work up there. So that's all to come. So I guess this is pretty much what we're going to be doing for this episode. So we can kind of move on to talking about something a little bit different, I suppose. I guess it could be more content related. So Planet Coaster is making a return. That happened last episode. It made a return after not being on the channel for like 2 months or so. So it's coming back, and the release of Planet Coaster Console Edition is coming out, and all that stuff is happening. But also a lot of the parks are starting to shut down for the year again. A lot of like the Cedar Fair parks, they close. If they were doing Winterfest, they close at like the end of December or around that Christmas time, and then they're closed through January, February, and they open up like sometime in March and April. So like my home park is Kings Island, and it will be closed actually this weekend, the one I'm recording. So it closes after Halloween. So that's pretty much, I'm gonna be kind of stuck not going into any more amusement parks, and that kind of forces a little bit of like harder content to make, because I'm not able to go and get like video footage and stuff like that, and I'm not really I can still stay in the news, but it's not really from my personal experiences. So Planet Coaster and maybe some of the other games like Parkitect and No Limits, those ones will be a little bit more relevant in the coming months, besides the other videos. So that's pretty much kind of what I wanted to go over. Although I did see something that Carowinds is opening up for a little while, which is really weird because they never opened this year, and now they're gonna open for the end of the year, and then I don't know, I just found that a little weird. But so yeah, that's pretty much this episode, and we're still working on the interior of this ride. We're still working on that Mars area. So the main problem with this area in general was making sure that different areas weren't sticking through walls and all that. So that you can see that with what we're working on now, making sure the rocks don't penetrate the wall. And also when we were working on the last episode, the Mars area, or the moon area, the rocks were penetrating the wall, so I had to cover that all up with these different types of rocks. So it gives a little bit more detail to it. And now we're putting in the final touches before we move on to the actual building part, which I think I didn't really record all of it. You're gonna see a cut here in a couple seconds, 3, 2, 1, boom, cut. Yeah. So we're working on the exterior of the ride now. So pretty much the whole ride experience is done. So now we're gonna work on the queue, the exterior of the building, and pretty much this is gonna look like a huge warehouse. I don't know how I wanted to theme this whole building to look like. On one side it's gonna have the theming of the area. On the other side it's gonna have a theming of another area. And actually the next area we're going into, which I don't wanna let it go yet because we're not quite to the end of the episode, but I'll give a little bit of a hint here. So the next area is gonna have to do with the front of the park, as I already said, and it's gonna have some sort of water tie into it. And it's also gonna have a dark ride like this. So that ride will be really, really close to this building in particular, and this building will be kind of used as an extension for the show building of that. So that's kind of I'm using it for, it's a multi-purpose building, and that's really what I wanted to do because this section of the park is kind of getting limited in space. If I zoomed out right here, you could see that it kind of makes a triangle. So on one side we have this street that we're working on, which is the Sci-fi area, and then the other street is going to be that next area that we do, and then there's another street coming back the other way that will be another area. So I wanted to make it as universal as possible, and that's why it's just this gray warehouse right now. For the Sci-fi area, that's pretty much all it's gonna be. I'm gonna slap on some neon lights and all that stuff and make it a little bit more futuristic and stuff, but that's it. Unlike the other areas that are gonna be really, really dressed up to actually fit the theme, because this type of warehouse laboratory facility, it kind of fits with the whole Sci-fi area, but it doesn't really fit with other areas that could be seen. And what I'm referring to would be more city buildings, or out in the outback type stuff, all that types of buildings. So here there's going to be another cut, and the building will be actually finished magically. Yeah, I cut it all out because it was a long and tedious process, as this part is going to be actually. So here is our second flat ride for this area. This is going to be the second part of it. It is a shooting up, I don't know, you call it an SNS, what are they called? No, my mind's blanking. Basically it's one of those power tower things. I don't know what they're officially called, but it isn't getting my mind into that area, because recently SNS did release the spin shot, and I was debating whether to do a video on it actually, on breaking it down, but I never really did, and I don't think I will, just because I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot more people would have done something on it. So I didn't. I just kind of let it go because there's not enough information on it yet. There was just that trailer. Nobody's really announced actually getting one. But pretty much all it is retrofitting a ride sort of like this with a spinning ride. So we are working on this ride here, and the way I wanted this to look was almost like a cannon of some sort. So, well, not like a cannon, but Hulk's, the Incredible Hulk coaster's gamma ray shooter thing that it shoots out of at the very beginning. Wow, that was really bad of me saying what that was. But pretty much that's what I'm going for here. Well, that's what I wanted it to be. In the end, I went on to in-person, and it was really, really claustrophobic. If you kicked your legs out, they would probably be hitting the glass. So I believe I just decided to tear all this out, but I wanted to give you like some sort of perspective on how this build kind of went, because in the end it's really simple, and I made it a lot more complicated than it needed to be. So yep, this ride is going to be the third ride in this area. And as I was saying last episode, but the one before that, we had worked on the other side with that Cosmic Cow. That Cosmic Cow milkshake area, that wall that separates this area from the other area. And on the other side, we have that spaceship flat ride. I don't really know what that's called either. But that's going to be sitting there, and then that will be sort of tied into the area on that side. And I did actually do something that you won't see until we start that area, but it's almost like a scrapyard slash like a shipyard almost. So the yard of like spaceships that you can build in game, there's a little bit of that on that corner filling in the grass, and then that kind of leads into that area over there. So I won't give you too much more information on that, because I don't want like you guys to know exactly what's gonna go on with that. It's like I don't want you guys to know exactly what's gonna happen in the next episode until I release it. But I mean, we're pretty much at the end of the episode, so I'm gonna tell you anyway. So next episode, you guys can expect a riverfront expansion. So this would be, if it was like a actual studio park, well, what type of movies would these be based off of? Like the city area would be based off of like city, like criminals and all that stuff. Ghostbusters, obviously Ghostbuster themed, and this area would be more like outer space themed. But what about this front area that we're going to work on next? Well, it's like a riverfront, as I said, and what kind of comes to mind is like kind of love, or you could go the other way and like pirates and stuff. Since it's at the front of the park, I want it to go more of the romance route. I know that doesn't really sound like the most interesting flat ride, but or ride in general area, but I will make it work, I promise. I think it's gonna look pretty well, and the main attraction is gonna be in this area between the show building that we made and the pathing. So, and then it's also gonna go under the pathing and do all this. So I spent like 40 minutes doing like just borders and all that stuff, and there's gonna be a whole pond there that's gonna sprout off into the rest of the park. So that's all to come in the next episode. We're getting to like that final minute now. I've talked a lot more in this episode about what we're doing than like in last episode, because I had a lot to go over last episode. Really didn't have a lot to come over. This is what it's normally like. Like last episode was a lot more planned out. This one, not so much. I just kind of went with the flow. That's where you got that SNS spin shot from, and all that other crazy stuff that's just kind of going on in the world. Like the park's closing down again, and you know, hopefully they are going to be reopening on time, so I can get more videos out to you guys that are more real life based. But in the meantime, you got Planet Coaster and maybe Parkitect and probably No Limits. So with that being said, we are in the final 10 seconds of the time lapse, so I'm going to say adios. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoy the POV. See you guys next time. Peace.